So your best options, I think, when you're thinking about venture capital is to have a choice to say no. And that choice to say no is the fact that your company is profitable and growing and something that is sustainable on its own right. Now, if you're in that position and then you can negotiate from a position of strength, then there are great things to focus on. But I think your first focus should be on making sure you don't have to make that decision. Edgar talked a lot about the importance of what drives entrepreneurship, and belief was the first thing he talked about. And I think when you're talking about getting an investor, and Nick mentioned when you're taking an investor in, it's like a marriage, and it is like a marriage. It's a long-term one, and it's very difficult to get a divorce. The key is belief. Belief that you feel that this investment partner believes in what you're trying to accomplish, your goals, your mission in your company, and what you're trying to achieve in life. And a lot of people, I think, spend a lot of time on the financial terms of the transaction and don't really try and understand what are your shared goals, what are your shared values, what do you want to achieve? And that's because we're all busy. We don't spend the time to go out to dinner and really get to know somebody. But I do. I still do that with entrepreneurs. A lot of people don't. But I really try and understand what makes them tick and what's success in their mind. Because you're buying not only a piece of the business, you're buying your share of that person's dreams and fears and issues. And so that I view that as a partnership when you really understand what another person's motivations are. If somebody's not interested in that part of the equation, then you ought to question, frankly, whether or not this person is really going to be there for you long term. Secondly, I think how you're treated in the process is an important part of that decision making. And if the shoe doesn't fit at the store, it's unlikely to feel good when you get home. And I when I've had conversations in the past with people where there've been some red flags, in the discussions along the way. And in those when you're making business decisions, you have those instincts where you say, there's something not quite right here. Well, listen to those instincts, okay? You may not have done it 10 times before, but those instincts are right. And in 95% of the cases, I'd say, those instincts should tell you to turn another direction. So don't be afraid by the fact that you haven't done this before, that you're being forced into a situation where you don't understand, because you've made some great business decisions in building your business. Have the same kind of confidence about raising money. And then finally, I'd say the terms discussion we'll get to, I think, in detail, but I do think that people tend to focus a little bit too much on the terms and less on the partnership aspects of bringing an investor on board. And again, in my experience, though, the entrepreneurs have been the much more reasonable party in the discussions than the investors, in my experience, in working with Endeavor entrepreneurs and some of the choices they've had to make. And so I really do believe you got to have an opportunity to say no. And so my encouragement is, to kind of stick with your knitting, build your business successfully, and then date for a while, as Michael would like to say, build that reputation of trust with that investor, and then come to the table with terms when it's somebody that you feel like you've demonstrated both an importance to them and that they've really contributed back to your business. And hopefully you can come to reasonable terms, because ultimately you, as an entrepreneur, have to achieve your investors' expectations and dreams as well. You both have to satisfy each other's needs to really make it a successful relationship.